All right, 6 minutes after 7 o'clock here, bright and early in Anchorage. It's about, 13 degrees out. Not, pretty normal for us. But for my next guest, it might be a little bit chilly. Kevin Scholla, he's the host and creator of the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio, and he's a Breitbart columnist, a sports announcer and reporter, a busy man. He always has something going on. Kevin, welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Burke. How are you?
I am well today. Thank you so much, and good to have you. Sounds like
great to be here. Yeah, your weather comment in years past, that would make sense. But I think I'm going to head to visit you to warm up a little bit. The whole East Coast, we're in like our third snowstorm of the week.
You guys are really getting the tell us. We sit back. I'll be honest with you. I don't mean to to beat up on you East Coast folks, but we're especially the folks down in Atlanta. Now, because I know that you and the Northeast residents there are used to snow every now and then, but we're sitting up here in Alaska, and we look at, like, let's say Atlanta, and we go, they got 2 inches of snow. My gosh, do you think the world come to an end? I mean, they're all over the freeways. People are crashing, and each other are sleeping in Target stores and Walmarts and sleeping at the schools, and nobody can drive. And we're up here going, 2 inches of snow? Really? I mean, you must be having some similar thoughts, too, or do you guys think that way? Maybe you're not.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it's ridiculous. I mean, New York, Philadelphia, this area, we're used to, at least every year, you have double-digit snow totals as far as inches, even in individual storms. And as recent as 2010, we had like a 22-something inch storm. But Atlanta, is that amazing? I have a friend right in the suburbs of Georgia. He had 2 days off of work for 2 inches of snow. And, everyone's fine, but, I mean, you have one salt truck in the entire city or whatever it is, so it's amazing. But you compare it to California when it rains and the weatherman comes on TV, he looks like there's a terrorist attack. So
it's crazy. I don't know. We just sit up here and think, 2 inches of snow, my gosh. I mean, the ground's barely wet. Hey, you're a sports announcer. And so give us your take on the Super Bowl.
Wow, huh?
Big
no
question
one
there.
could have predicted that. I liked Seattle going in, but it was one of those coin flips. You figured, hey, this could go either way. Seattle, top to bottom's the better team, but you have Peyton Manning on the other side. I kind of compared it to the college championship this year, where I thought Auburn was the best team, but you had Jameis Winston on Florida State, so you said, do you go against the hot hand? But what I really liked about Seattle is, they did it with defense. And in a time now where this commissioner has made every type of change that has hurt defense, and I think has hurt the game, it's nice to see that defense came through again. I also like that Malcolm Smith got the MVP. I think they should have given it to someone on the defensive side.
Yeah.
But you got to say this, Eddie. I mean, I know y'all are Seattle fans, a lot of you up there. I know the Palins are and whatnot. But just looking at it as someone who didn't really have a team in this, the Seahawks have solidified themselves here as one of the greatest teams in Super Bowl era, because say what you want, they may not have the names now. Maybe in years from now we'll look back and say, oh, look at all the great Hall of Famers they had. But when you look at, say, the 74 Steelers or the 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears, I mean, they're right there because of what they did in this game. You go undefeated, you protect your home field, you have this great defense all year in a time where defense, where all the rules go against you now, and then you go and just blast Denver. You got to put them up there.
And we knew that the defense was going to be the greatest offense against the greatest defense. And so, and as a former player myself, not in the NFL or nothing, I mean, but high school, Pop Warner type, boys club, and a coach, well, for one thing, I was amazed that Seattle did as well as they did. There's no way in the world I'd have predicted it. But or obviously I was happy, but I think it just made the point that you can't win without a great defense, and how important a defensive team is, and that you're right, is that they've scored this, or they've designed the NFL now around high scoring, lots of passing, rack up lots of points, lots of touchdowns, in order to keep the entertainment benefit of it. But for Seattle to overcome that and actually just dominate, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I think it was the 5th time that the number one offense went against the number one defense in the Super Bowl, and only once did the offense prevail. So the defense came out on top again. But what was even more impressive to me with Seattle is that they did it in all facets. And that's what I don't ever recall in a Super Bowl game, where you dominated on defense. I mean, you almost had a shutout, giving up the 8 points late in the second half. But then they also ran a kickback for a touchdown. They were pretty much flawless on offense. Wilson didn't throw any interceptions. They had a safety. They did it in every way: fumble recoveries, interceptions. So from top to bottom, people want to bash Manning after it happened. Listen, I don't care who the quarterback was that day or who the team was that day. Seattle wasn't going to lose to anybody that day.
It wasn't, that's interesting, because before the game, people were saying if Manning wins this, he will be talked about as up there with the greatest quarterbacks ever played the game. If he loses, then those questions will still be out there, whether or not what is his ability. And so I guess listening to that prior to the game, and then now we know that Manning did lose. So what does that do to his street cred in the long run?
For me, nothing. But for others, I think some people have preconceived thoughts on a player, and then they go ahead and use it to whatever way they want. They said the same thing about Manning when the Colts lost to the Saints in the Super Bowl a few years back. If he wins it, there's number 2, and now he's the best. And if he doesn't, what? So now he's not because of one game? Dan Marino was one of the best quarterbacks. He only made it to 1 and didn't win any.
Yeah.
You look at all these other guys who were there and never won any, or who only won 1, like Manning. A guy like Brett Favre, who was such a media darling, and even though he threw so many ridiculous interceptions, especially toward the end of his career, kind of got off, unscathed from the media and the fans because they liked him so much. But he only had 1. So, it's not always the rings. And you know how it is. The quarterback's going to get more blame and more credit than they deserve.
Sure.
And for every Manning and every Aikman and every great quarterback that's won a Super Bowl, you also have, the years where Jim McMahon or Trent Dilfer or Mark Rippon or Brad Johnson have won. So sometimes you win with a Hall of Fame quarterback, and sometimes you have a running game and a defense, and you have a guy who just happened to be in the right place at the right time and played well. So to me, listen, the eye test is there. Peyton Manning's a tremendous player. He's in the conversation. Is he the best quarterback ever? I don't know about that, but he's in the top 5.
Yeah. Talking to you is like talking to a Wikipedia on sports, man.
I don't know. It used to be. Ever since 5 years ago, now with kids, I feel like I don't know anything now. But
7:17 here at the Eddie Burke Show. My guest, Kevin Scholla. He's the host and creator of the Palin Update on SarahNetRadio.net. He's a Breitbart columnist, sports announcer, and a reporter, and he's like talking to Wikipedia, man, as far as sports. The guy can just rattle off names and dates and years like, I don't know, man. It's like he had it all in front of him when we rehearsed this. It's pretty amazing. Welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Thanks, Eddie. A little Hall & Oates action there, huh?
Yeah, we just, the Sarah deal. So what's going on with the radio?
They spell it wrong, though. I think in that Sarah Smoz, I think it's S-A-R-A. So we got to talk to John and Daryl about that. But everything's great. We hope people can tune in, SarahNetRadio.net. You can follow us on Twitter at SarahNetRadio. Brand new show every week, and then you can listen to all the shows at any time on demand. So any show from 2011 to now is up. And this week we have a really great one up and running right now. One of your guys there in Alaska actually on the program, Craig Campo, who is a Ski-Doo dealer in Fairbanks.
Right.
And he's sponsoring one of the Iron Dog teams this year, Todd Palin's team, along with Tyler Huntington, Team 11, in the big race coming up in a couple of weeks, the 16th. And what's really great, what they're doing this year, they are raising some money for breast cancer along the way.
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Not only Todd Palin's team, but a couple of the other Ski-Doo teams as well. and they're going to have some pink on the snow machine. And you could go online and check it out, and go ahead and make a contribution if you'd like. And what's really great about it, and we talked to Craig about this on the show, if people want to tune in and listen, it's something you can contribute to all year, and it also gives you the peace of mind that it's a reputable organization. It's run by volunteers in Alaska, and it all goes directly to help those in need, not only those suffering from breast cancer or fighting breast cancer, but the family members. And that's something I've run into in other organizations. They have the pink ribbons and the sentiment may be there, but you have some of these organizations where the money goes to paperwork or bureaucracy,
right.
Or even worse, some of these groups are in bed with some less than desirable organizations. So you're trying to do the right thing and say, oh, there's a pink ribbon on this, I'm going to buy this product instead of this one, and meantime your money's going to a group that, may be, friends with Planned Parenthood, shall we say, or something along those lines. So it's a great organization for more ways than one, and it's going to be an interesting Iron Dog because Todd Palin has a new partner this year, and between them they already have 6 championships, so it should be fun to watch.
We're speaking with Kevin Scholla, and he's the host and creator of the Palin Update on Saranet Radio, and of course, like I said, a Breitbart columnist. And what's the scoop now? Even though we live here, and I'm friends with, I know both Todd and Scott Davis now. So why the change? Help us update, inform people. Why did Todd and Scott Davis, who have been partners for 10 years, 7 years, something like that?
We didn't go into it too much on this week's show with Craig, although we are going to have an Iron Dog special coming up on Saranet Radio before the race.
So you're going to give us the scoop then?
Well, that's something that folks will want to tune into. We're going to have a lot of surprises on that program.
All right.
SaranetRadio.net, and you can check out when that's coming on. But we did talk to Craig briefly on this interview about the switch, and really he said it was just a matter of changing things up. It's not uncommon for guys to switch. Todd has switched before, and just a little shake-up, as Sarah Palin would say, I suppose. And here you just infuse a new energy for both of them, having new partners. And you have a guy, Tyler Huntington, who's just an interesting guy himself because he's coming back from an injury. He missed last year's race due to injury, so he's overcoming some things. But he's a young guy. He's only in his 20s still, and he has 2 championships under his belt. So I think they're just looking for the right formula and maybe a little new energy.
I've ridden with Scott Davis a lot, and he is a phenomenal rider. That guy, it's I don't know how to explain it, but he can do. I don't know. There's no way. It's just amazing what he can do with a snow machine. I go through areas and get stuck, and Todd just does it standing on his head. I mean, almost literally. And it's amazing to watch this guy ride. It's just like in the wind, but he's grown up doing it. But you're right. I mean, we're all pushing 50 years old or over 50. And that's people don't realize that's 3 days of just 1,100 miles of brutal work. Cold, sub-below temperatures. And I tell you, it gets tough. It gets real tough to do it. The older you get, the tougher it gets. And I think you're right. And I think that's a lot to do with it. You get some younger blood on there and mix it up a little bit more. Who knows, Scott, he could. I don't know if he's going to run this year or not. But it does. It's good to change it up now and then and it's happened before and it'll happen again. So I think they're good friends. I don't think there's any kind of problems going on. I doubt that very seriously. Just knowing both Todd and Scott Davis, just 2 real stand-up guys. So I encourage folks to not look into it too much as any type of negativity. Hey, Kevin, what about the president? I mean, it's easy for me to say that his presidency is a failure and all, but
you notice?
Yeah, but I mean, even if you're a great defender of the president, I mean, you have to kind of come to the grips with the fact that his State of the Union speech was full of nothing. It was really, I'm sure, a letdown to a lot of his defenders. And I mean, just from a pure kind of, he's going to have tough having any type of legacy at all, don't you think?
Yeah, and you would think that his supporters would go ahead and say that, and maybe in private they do. But what that Democrat Party is so good at, quote unquote, good at, is sticking together no matter what and keeping that company line. You know, I always point back to how horribly Obama and his team treated the Clintons in the 2008 primary. Yet as soon as he won that nomination, you know, Hillary was there, put her best pantsuit on and a smile, and said, "Hey, for this guy," even though, you know, her and Bubba in the back room were saying something else.
I love the pantsuit. That's perfect.
Yeah,
I don't know if people caught that or not, but put on her favorite pantsuit because everybody knows that's what she wears. That's her uniform. Those pants.
Almost like a Nickelodeon character. But you know. But you know, with Republicans, it's just the opposite. As soon as someone, and it's to a fault to sometimes losing elections, but it's to the credit for being honest. You know, when George W. Bush, even people who supported him, you know, started with the bailouts and things of that nature, conservatives spoke up and said, "Hey, we don't like this." But then what happens was it was used against them in the media and by the left, saying, "Oh, hey, see, even they turned on them." So the Democrats are very good at least saying they're for whatever it is being shoveled their way, especially from Barack Obama. But you're right. I mean, in that speech, I mean, he's basically out there saying, "Hey, Congress doesn't matter. If anything happens, I'll just do what the heck I want to do and make things up anyway." And if you're a Democrat representative, how do you feel there? Do you say, "Well, I don't matter, Mr. President? Should I just not be here? Should the Congress not be here?" It doesn't matter what party you're in. He's basically saying, "I'll do what I want and do whatever I have to do to achieve it."
It was just disappointing too. I think when you really look at it, the greatest thing he had to say was what? I'm going to open up a new way for you to save money. I mean, you know, he couldn't even pronounce it correctly.
No, I don't think anyone still can.
He stumbled when he even pronounced it. You know, my RA, and he wanted to say my IRA, which, you know, I know that's a play on words and whatever. And so, but who cares? It's a savings account. You can save. Heck, there's things called a piggy bank. You can put money in mutual funds, and there's just a plethora of different ways to save money. And for him to, I mean, that was his big deal. That was his big, you know, rollout. It just seemed, you know, what somebody told me is that a lady who I really admire and respect, because she's not political. I think she just, anyway, she says, you know, he had such a great opportunity to do so much. She says, I voted for him the first time, and it was just, and I believed in him, and I thought that he really could, because of his ethnicity and all, and his story, that he had such a great chance to do so much for the country and get so many things accomplished. And I think that's, you know, I really believe that her words are real true in a lot of people's minds who are out there, who are in the middle, maybe actually voted for him, is that he had such great potential, but it just, the house of cards is coming down.
Well, when you feel like you're the smartest guy in the room at all times, and no one can tell you, I mean, people, you hear it all the time. I mean, you know, these unnamed sources, but you always hear how bored he is at meetings and whatnot. I mean, the aloofness, as Susan Stimson put it on our program this week, she said he seemed like a punk up there, the way he's, you know, talking to the American people. And unlike Reagan did with Tip O'Neill, and unlike even Bill Clinton did with Newt Gingrich, this guy doesn't compromise, doesn't talk to anyone. It's my way or the highway all the time. And he has, you know, people like Pelosi and Reid and Biden who say, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah.
We agree with his craziness, too. So, you know, he has that backing. But, you know, when you talk to the average person and you say, hey, look at this issue, what do you think here? I mean, they're almost always on the other side. But then when you inject his name into it, it's a different thing. They like this guy for some reason, not necessarily his policies.
What do you think about Sarah Palin possibly running? Do you think she will? Is there any indications one way or the other? I don't think she will. That's my personal point of view. I don't have anything to base that on. I haven't spoken to her or Todd or anything like that. It's just a hunch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what she'll do, but I do know this, Eddie, the popularity's there. There was another poll out the other day. She wasn't even mentioned as one of the candidates, and she won the poll as a write-in.
Yeah.
So, you know, as far as a primary situation, heck, she'd have as good of a chance as anyone. And, you know, you would need someone like her. If it is not Governor Palin, who would be the best person, it has to be someone like her, a Ted Cruz, a Rand Paul. Mike Lee has already said he's not going to run. I mean, I know people have said that before and have changed their mind. But then after that, what are you looking at? I mean, Jeb Bush, Chris Christie. I mean, this is like Gingrich and McCain and Romney all over again. I mean, what you need an opposite of these far left.
We need
policies.
a conservative. We
Yes.
keep running these moderates and they lose, and when we run conservatives like Reagan, we win. And
Right.
Anyways, Kevin Scholla is my guest here, and well, thank you so much for calling in today and spending a little time with us. Check him out on saranetradio.net. And is that right? Did I say that? Sometimes I don't have it here in front of me. Okay.
You
awesome
got it.
stuff.
And, Eddie, always a pleasure. And if you want to, see some real snow, head to the East Coast.
All right. Bye-bye. We'll be right back, folks.